Hey, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Demystifying Post Productions. And in this week, we're gonna talk about grading, color grading. We had a project with Tony, and we shot some short videos, and we break down all the aspect from shooting, planning, editing, and this week we'll be talking about grading. But before we jump onto the project, I would like to let you know that in the handout sections of your GoToWebinar panel, you'll have a PDF link, a PDF document, and inside the PDF document, you have all the important links because using this link, you can access the Maxon merch store, and you can get one free T-shirt using the code stated in the documents. It's creative workflow, by the way. And in this episode, we'll be grading the project that Tony shot and edit. And if you want to follow along, there is a available um, downloadable assets with the timeline and everything is already ready there in the Dropbox. So if you wonder where to access the Dropbox links, you can access that as well from the PDF document in your handout sections, or if you go to maxon.net/events and click the Demystifying Post Productions Week 4, you'll see that there's also a download link. And it will lead you here. And you can download all the assets and the finished grade as well, which will play right after this. Okay. And if you're wondering what events coming up on Maxon, you can go to maxon.net/events, and you'll see that there are plenty more events available on Maxon hosted by Maxon Training Team. For example, this Thursday, I think we'll have Ask the Trainer. So if you have anything to ask to any Maxon trainers, please feel free to show up and just ask the trainers. And next week, we'll have another Maxon Color sessions going on. And um, since we're approaching the end of the month, there will be a new sessions. There will be new series on demystifying post productions. But don't forget, we still have one last one. I think it's next week on Monday, talking about the VFX. But if you're curious about what's coming up next in demystifying post productions, I think Chad would let you know about that. So Chad, go on, man.
Yeah, it's cool. And they upgraded the website that it's already on there, which is great. So it's not as much of like a big reveal. But I was going to talk about next month, we're going to have kind of like a continuation of this conversation. So we've been talking about like shooting on set and actually like getting footage and stuff like that in this month. And so like next month, we're going to focus on like digital cinematography. So we're going to talk about lighting and how to light stuff more specifically and focal lengths of lenses and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll also show how that translates to like cinema cameras and After Effects cameras and Redshift cameras and all that stuff, which is going to be like really fun. So we're going to like look at Hollywood movies and how things are lit and different like techniques for lighting and what it means and how that translates to the digital world and limitations and all that kind of stuff. So it should be really fun. And also next week too, can we announce our special guest? Is that that feels like that's like an official thing. So we have a special guest next week who is the one who actually makes these mirror balls that we used on set, and he's in the Visual Effects Society in New York, and he's going to join us. Go ahead. Oh, he doesn't make. I'm sorry.
No, that's another guy, but he's the one that let me borrow them.
Okay, that counts.
Awesome.
Yes, that's close enough.
So I think if you are into VFX and if you want to know like the best practice of establishing VFX on your projects, I hope to see you in next week sessions in the Mystifying Post Productions, where we're gonna talk about the VFX, right?
Thanks, Max. That's fun.
No worry, man. And if you want to catch up with the recordings, by the way, this session is also recorded, and it will be uploaded to YouTube soon after we finish. And if you want to follow up and if you want to catch up with other recording, and you can go to YouTube and just type in Maxon Training Team. You'll find all the webinars hosted by Maxon Training Team will be available there. So without further ado, let us go to the bread and butter for today, color grading, right? If you've been following this series since the first week, you're probably wondering why Max and Tony hasn't shown the final cut yet, why the edit is not available yet. Due to technical difficulties, we are unable to upload it in the platform at the moment. But I'll play the clip so that you'll see the directions that we are going. And but unfortunately, the sound will not go through. But if you want to watch on your end, you can go to the Dropbox links, and there's Maxon Santa Cruzing MP4. That's the final grade that we did, and you can watch on your site if you want to, have more immersive experience because the audio will be there. Right. Let me play the clip. So the idea of this shot is that the idea of the grade is that Tony came to me with this project, and I think it's every single colorist's dream, because Tony came to me and said like, hey Max, do your things and make it looks great. And when you have like that much freedom, it's like working, and all the creativity is just flowing through you. And then what's nice is that you are free to test several different looks, and if it's not fit, then you can just like, okay, it doesn't fit, then we'll do another one. And that's what nice with this project, because it is not how do you call it, it is not haunted by the deadline, and we can afford the time, and we can try different looks that we like. So before,
Max.
yeah, Tony, go on.
It was also shot with the intention of showcasing some of the new features just before NAB. So to showcase the diffusion, to showcase all the new features in Magic Bullet Suite, and to be able to push your footage a little bit further. And the sensors, on these cameras are pretty incredible. So to be able to shoot low light and then bring in the highlights and keep the highlights, stuff like that, was kind of the main focus. Other than that, everything else was like, have fun, be creative, make sure that we can push these highlights and make sure that we can utilize these effects. But besides that, like, just go with it, and let's see where we end up.
And prior to these sessions, we did another sessions at Maxon Color. That's another webinar, by the way. And we break down the prepping for the timeline, because it consists of multiple different camera brands. And then Tony went from Adobe Premiere Pro, and then prepping the timeline in DaVinci Resolve, and then handed out to me a bake 4444 clip with a DRT. That's a DaVinci Resolve timeline file. So if you miss that sessions, you can go to YouTube and search for Maxon Color. In fact, let's go to YouTube, and if you go to playlist, you see Maxon Color, click the full playlist, and then you'll see the prepping and grading a multiple camera edit. There on that episode, we're talking about exactly preparing this project and the grouping aspects before we go into grading. But it's not that we won't share it with you. Here is a brief overview. I think I'll hand it out to Tony, and Tony will preview
Sure.
it, like share with you
how
he did it. Yeah, exactly.
Do a quick refresh. Okay.
So Tony, I'll make you presenter.
All right.
Now you're eligible to share your screen.
Now I'm allowed. Okay. So
yeah.
screen just fine. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
We're seeing it.
There it is. Great. Okay, so on the top here, I have my main clip, but just to kind of show you what we have done, and this is what you'll have on your downloads, is you'll see the drone, the Canon R5, Sony FX6, and the Canon C70, all separated, and each track is color coded, and you can do so changing the color for each track. I have them all locked down right now, and then I also put our final version inside, so we can kind of just toggle between Max's color and our timeline here. As you can see, it kind of brings it to life. So, but the idea is it's separated and it's ready to go. So then each clip, you can see, you understand what the recipe is when you go into grading. You don't have to say, oh, that was a Sony and that was a Canon, and then you end up with something super crunched. So, you know, the idea is separating the gamma curves and the different, you know, sensors. So then that way you end up with a better looking product. Even though this comes from something flat, you still get the characteristics of each camera in there. So when you download, this is available in Resolve and available in Premiere. So those of you not using Resolve, you can play with this inside of Premiere just the same. Everything is separated and color coded and all that good stuff. And the tracks are all labeled. So that's just a quick brief as to what has been done. If you do want to see it, we cover this in detail on that Maxon Color session. So other than that,
Thank you so much.
Max, we can share your screen, and I can
definitely, man.
do our grade. I'll play client and you can play the colorist.
Awesome. So before we go into grading the project, let me just share like the method, how I approach the how do you call it, the project. First of all, grouping is like really a crucial part in this project, because by default, if you see on the screen, by default in Resolve, if you don't group your clip, you only have like two different categories. That is like the clip itself and then the timeline. That's actually fine, really. But if you're working with multiple clips, it is really nice if you are grouping your clip, because once you group your clip, there will be like two other categories unlocked. And here you will see that there will be like 4 dots instead of 2. And to share with you the, how do you call it, the illustrations that I made it like quite bad here. Before grouping, you will have like a clip level group and just the timeline for every single clip. But once you group things, when you group clip, you will have like another how do you call it, node category that is like the one before the clip. It's called the pre-clip, and the one after the clip, and that's called the post clip. And the way I use those groupings is actually similar to how you divide a film or movie or videos. It's similar to when you write a book, right? Or when you read a book. A book consists of paragraph, and paragraph consists of sentences, and sentences consist of words. And a movie consists of scenes, and scenes consist of shots, right? And the way I use the groupings is that I want to use the clip level for my color corrections, balancing, matching, and those kind of operations in the clip level. But then when I want to create a look that affect everything, that affect the whole piece, that would be like where timeline will be like the best place to use that. And then, as I told you before, a movie consists of scenes, right? And if you want to access scenes, if you want to grade per scenes, if you want to create a specific look, but only apply to scene A and not bothering scene B or scene C, it's only exclusively applied to scene A, then you can do that in post clip or pre clip. That's why grouping is like really important, right? So let's move on into the timeline where we did the grade. So this is the final timeline. Probably you'll be like, oh man, that's a very complicated looking node. It's like, is that really necessary? No, it's not necessary. The thing is like node structure, creating a node structure, the one that you use over and over again, will give you like a muscle memory, and it will allow you to grade faster. And to how do you call it? To illustrate that, let's move into another timeline that I already prepared, which is just like an empty timeline. And the way I approach this, creating node structure, is actually pretty simple. And actually, we already did that. We covered that in depth in Maxon color session that we talked before. But just to share with you, let me reset everything. Sorry, Control Home. There you go. By pressing Control Home, you reset everything in your node. So first of all, before creating the node structure, you'll see that I group my things, my clip, my project based on the scenes. So here I have a talking head, and it just consists of the main subject, talking, interviewing, and then there's like a B-roll just in this graffiti wall, and then I have the macro shots of the bike, and I have the riding the Harley scene, and last but not least, I have the night scenes, which is like very dark. And also, just because we have drone footage there, I separate them, and they are tagged as a Rec 709 because they are all Rec 709. I think I missed to tag this one. And to group that, you can simply just right-click your clip and then add into new group if you don't have group yet. But since we already have group before, I'll just like put it into Rec 709 and assign to group. And that's how you group your clip, by the way. So let us create the node structure. And in creating the node structure, there's no like a hard and fast rule that, you know, this node will work on every single project. No, it's not going to be the case, because sometimes you always need to adjust your node structure whenever you work with a different project. But you know, having something pre-made for you and you can just tweak it later on, it's like really easy. So the first thing that I normally want to do is that, you know, I create several serial node, and that is by pressing the shortcut Alt S, or you can just right click and select add node, add serial, like exactly like that. And in the very first node, what we're doing is that we're going to do the noise removal exactly on the first node before anything else happen, right? And here I probably want to do like my white balance adjustment, my contrast adjustment, and here is like the overall exposure and saturation. So it's like my balancing node. And then after that,
Hey Max, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I jump in and interrupt you for a second?
Go on, man.
Quick question. So the only comments in the chat so far are that like it looks amazing. Hannah said like it looks like super gorgeous. You guys did a great job on
Thank
this,
you.
which obviously I agree because I have eyes that work. But I have a question about noise reduction in DaVinci Resolve, and if this is like too big of a, if this is like I actually have two questions. If it's too big of a question, then just like skip it, but because it might not apply at all. My first question is maybe shorter, and like this footage was shot super gorgeous, and these cameras are like very sensitive to light, and the footage seems like super clean. to me when I was just kind of going through it, but I don't think I've gone through like the raw footage that much, so maybe I don't know. So first question is, do you need to do you need to polish up like all footage? Is that something you always do? And my second question is, are there noise reduction settings that you could recommend quickly without getting into it, that you could recommend for DaVinci Resolve? Because there is the temporal noise reduction and then some other kind of noise reduction, something like that. Yeah, spatial. And I'm like, I don't know my spatial noise from my temporal noise. I couldn't pick those. I couldn't pick my noise reductions out of a lineup, police lineup. So
that's a good question, Chad. Thank you so much.
Do you have any kind of like quick thoughts on that? But again, I don't want to derail the thing, and you got a lot to cover.
No
and yada, so
we're gonna cover that anyway. Okay. So first off, noise reductions. Did I do it like in every project, in every clip? Not necessarily. Once I play around with a dynamic range of the clip, for example, if I'm increasing contrast or increasing the lifting the shadow area, that's normally where I start to see like noise, like apparent noise. But if I don't do that, and there's and the footage is like stays pristine, then I won't need to do a noise reductions. One very nice things about Resolve noise reductions is that there are two different noise reductions method. The first one is temporal, and the other one is spatial. Let's talk about spatial first. Spatial is actually like softening your neighboring pixels. So by blurring and softening those pixels, normally the noise is got blurred, and then you have like the effects of reductions in noise. But that's easy. But that's like very similar to what we have in what's the denoiser? Sorry, exactly. That's exactly the same. Not exactly the same, similar method, so to say. But when we're talking about temporal, the noise reductions in temporal is like you need to specify a sample, like how many frames that you want to analyze. So normally, like to do that, you can say like, okay, I just want to analyze 2 different frames. It means that this frames and then the frame right after that. And what the noise reductions do, it will be like comparing those 2 different frames, maybe overlaid, and I don't know, and then it will see what remains, and what remains in the image. So probably by doing that, it will consider that that remains normally like the part of the image, though those that doesn't remain, like jumping around, that's probably the noise, and that's how the algorithm probably detect noise and then remove it. But sometimes I don't know. I also heard in forum that using temporal noise reductions can also lead into like softening of the frame rate as well. So you have like this kind of like how do you call it, high frame rate type of playback. So normally when you are very sensitive with frame rate, I think the better solutions is to go spatial first and see if you really need the temporal, because the downside of temporal is it can soften your not soften, how do you call it, it gives you like this telenovela kind of feeling, higher frame rate type of stuff, like news footage instead of like motion pictures. So you can define the frames, and you have the estimations. I normally just say stay with better and medium. And when you're using temporal, you sometimes like, oh, do I just like crank it and just use it like that? But there's a better method to do that, and that is by using this highlight here. So if you click highlight and set it to AB, and once you start to like crank this noise reductions, and you'll start to see that it start to how do you call it? It start to recognize these things in your image, and those normally are the noise. But if you start to like bumping it like very high, but this image has a very nice dynamic range. It doesn't happen to that. Sometimes if you get the outline of the image, then it's a good measurement.
Affected pixels. It's showing
Yeah,
which pixels are affected in this map
exactly.
in luminance values. So black and white to
Yeah,
show you where the image is being affected.
there you go. So when you use the A/B comparison and you see like the outline of your image, that's normally the indications that you're gone too far. So simply like dial it back. Right, Chad?
That is amazing. Thank you so much. That's like a really well explained and a lot of great information for me. So
Oh man,
then
thanks.
am I correct in assuming that like if I took the frames up to 3, then it's going to compare more frames. It's going to give
Yes,
me more accurate results, but it's also going to take a
more
lot longer.
accurate reason, more accurate result, but then it is also very how do you call it? Resource heavy, so to say.
Right.
The more
Right.
frame, then
Okay.
the more resource heavy it is.
Also a studio thing. This is also if you have the
Oh
studio.
yeah, I forgot to tell you. I forgot to mention that.
So
Yeah,
let's say you have Maxon 1 versus having the studio version of this. You can even add that as a node too.
yeah, and
Oh yeah, you could add denoiser. That's a good point.
exactly. Um, but denoiser doesn't run in Resolve at the moment. It's
Oh,
only available in Creative Cloud. Yeah,
well, use it on the Adobe side and then bring it
yeah,
over.
exactly. So we are in creating the node structure, right? So at the moment, I already have like my base, how do you call it? My base node. You can do everything here in 1 or 2 nodes, but I like to separate them because once I do like contrast adjustment, like for example here, if I just do contrast adjustment, I can like audition them. So like, oh, okay, the one that causing problem is contrast. That's why I separate them. And next part in the node structure is is where I tackle the lighting in the scenes. So this is where I normally like change the lighting ratios, or in the scenes, or blocking things using power windows. This is where I do it. And to do that, I will create several parallel node, and you can do that by simply right click, add node, add parallel, or you can also just simply click Alt P, just like that. And here I have like several parallel nodes stacked on top of each other, combined with this parallel, how do you call it, combiner here. And for this one, I also, for each of this lighting category here, I'd like to create something that outside of my selections, because I will be using Power Window. And to create something, like for example, let me just show you an example. For example, if I create a vignette here, and just ramp it up to 10, probably something like that, I can of course like invert the vignette and have only this area, only like this area affected. I can do that by using this invert button here, but I don't want to do that. I just want to have a dedicated node for that. And to do that, you can simply press Alt O, or outside, or create node. Where is it? Add outside. That's how I do it. And here as well, all of this, Alt O and Alt O again here. But if you can see, I have my signal for all of these nodes, or all of this power window nodes, coming from the balance node here previously. I don't want that. I want every single signal that come to my power windows here, except the vignette. It has to come from the source. And to do that, I'll just like disable the connections and reroute the connections right from the source. So the signal that I affect in this node over here will not affected by the noise reductions, will not affected by the white balance, will not affected by the contrast. and exposure and saturation node. And then after that, here I will have another node for my secondaries. So I normally create another parallel nodes. And instead of creating an outside node this time, I create another serial node. So in this first parallel node, I can use that, for example, when I need to key something using Qualifier, when there is case that requires me to use the Qualifier, then there where I will use it. And here I will use it as my OFX whenever I want to use plugin. There, exactly in this node, I'll use it. And this one, I'll dedicate that for my curves adjustment. And here probably skin, because we're dealing with humans, and sometimes if the talent has like a how do you call it, not very perfect skin complexions, and you need to do a skin retouching, then here in this dedicated node where I will tackle that. And the last two node here, I'll dedicate that to texture. So maybe here is texture for one, texture, another texture on top of that. Because in my opinion, when we are color grading, three big things in color grading is that, you know, we're affecting the color, we're affecting the contrast, and we want to affect the, you know, texture as well. Like you can soften it, you can sharpen it, you can, you know, make it look rugged or something like that. And that's where I use it. And finally, I have three different nodes to do the trim. So it's just like that. So in this trim node, for example, when I'm creating the overall look, and when there's a something that is out of balance after creating the look, then this trim node will be the one that I use to adjust that. Or if after finishing the grade, Tony came back to me and said like, oh, your clip is too dark, this one, please lift the shadow in this area. And exactly here in this trim nodes, those area, I mean, those adjustments will be done exactly in this nodes. Because by doing that, I will not mix it up with the balance, the initial balancing and the initial contrast adjustment, initial white balance and noise reductions. So I have a dedicated node for that. So if we go into the color, the how do you call it, the final one, you'll see that all those adjustments are done here. Here I have my exposure, contrast, white balance, and here I have my key, which is I don't use much. Here as well, apparently I don't use keying much, and skin retouching also nothing. Secondary, probably it's curves. Yeah, it's curve. As you can, if you hover over it, you'll see that there's a hue versus hue and hue versus luminance and so on and so forth. So that is the creations of the node structure. Now, before moving on, the big thing, the very initial thing is to choose what type of workflow that I want to use in my my project. Let us switch to the empty project. So due to time considerations, I won't be able to, you know, grade everything, but probably we will grade some clips in the end. But before that, I want to talk to you about color management. So in this project, the color how do you call it? The color management framework that I use in this project specifically is ACES. So I want to use ACES because ACES is open source, and ACES is available for many other software. And you know, using ACES, it takes it gives me freedom as a colorist to know for sure that what the camera saw on the day that we shot, in the transformations of what the camera saw on the day that we shot into the the data that your display can reproduce, you know that those transformations will be accurate if we are using a color managed workflow, for example, in ACES, because we don't do any guesswork to do the transformations. Those to normalize the image, right? So you probably asked me what's normalized image. The normalized image is nothing more than image that looks good, that looks neutral. It has contrast in it, it has saturations in it, and that's a normalized image. It's not log image per se, so to say. And how to set ACES in DaVinci Resolve? Well, there are plenty of ways to do that. You can set it in node level, but to set it like to set it globally, you can use the project level settings. And to do that, and that's exactly the case that we use here, that I use here. I set ACES in the project file, in the project level. And to do that, you can open the project settings by clicking the project settings cogwheel button here. And if you go here in the color management, you see that we have the color science set into ACES CCT, and the ACES versions is set into ACES 1.3. Whenever possible, use the newest ACES versions, by the way, because in 1.3 there's like a very nice gamut compressions algorithm embedded into the framework. And then after that, we need to how do you call it? We need to define what the input transform for these projects. But since it is in project level, I don't want to tag my input transform here. I can do that in per clip basis. So instead of having the input transform in the project settings, I'll do that later on when we are in the project. But what I want to do is that I want to set the output transform, because I will be delivering this project to a Rec 709 screen, and I will be monitoring this project in a Rec 709 screen, and I will set the ACES output transform into Rec 709. And as you can see, I have apply ACES reference gamut compress selected, and also I'm using a color space aware grading tools. And not least is here. Normally, in a color management sections here, you have 3D lookup table interpolations, and there are two different methods here. The first is 3 linear, and the second one is tetrahedral. Well, without going into very deep into like what the difference between tetrahedral and trilinear, let's just understand that tetrahedral is much more advanced interpolations algorithm compared to the 3 linear. So if you plan to use LUT and you want to have a better result, better interpolations of that LUT, try to use the tetrahedral rather than 3 linear. I have difficulty pronouncing that. Right. So once we confirm that, we have like this very good starting point of a normalized image, right? So if we disable ACES, you'll see that we are working with a log image. So we need to bring the image into like a normalized state. And then after that, we create our look on top of that. Well, that first, it's too much guesswork. And second, it's just like, how do I do that? How do I match that between all different cameras? Because it will be plenty of guesswork that I need to do there. So set it back to ACES CCT, select save. And that's how I, how do you call it? How I use ACES framework in my project. So the first thing,
just
yes.
Really quick, can you take that and just show how quickly, middle mouse it to a couple different clips to just show that
absolutely,
now that you have that framework, you can just simply take it to the line.
Yes. Now, once I have like the node 3 structure created, you'll see that other node, other clip still doesn't have the same, how do you call it? node structure, what you can do is that you can simply just select everything, right, and double click the reference, how do you call it, clip, and boom, you have the node structure applied to all your clips. And since it is empty, it's fine. You can start working on that. Now come the very fun part is that, you know, you come into color correcting this clip. And what I do in my color correction, so let's move into the finished timeline, but we will just work into we'll just work in 4 different clips here. Let's just pick the one that doesn't have any grade on top of this, or okay, I apparently prepared a timeline for that without moving into a different project. Sorry for that. Here I have the look in my timeline disabled, and then I also have the group post clip, the post clip, the scene look, so to say, also disabled, and also yeah, it's also the scene look as well disabled. And I don't have any adjustment in my my clip level, except that I have a vignette here. So let's start doing the color corrections here, right? This is where I start to use like the grouping categories, because I like to work with a, instead of like having like all the clips shown at me, I can just select the group that I am working on at the moment. So in this case, let's just color correct the talking head clip. So the first thing that I do is that I'll check that, okay, the exposure level seems to be fine, but it seems to be it's lacking contrast a little bit. So what we need to do, probably let's try to increase the contrast level a little bit and play around with the pivot point. So you can have either more highlight or more shadow. And in this case, I set the contrast to 1.2 and bump up the pivot point into 0.4. And now I can see that, okay, probably it needs a little bit more exposure, and we can just use the gain control to brighten up a little bit. Or if we want to, we can use the HDR wheel, because HDR wheel is, one, it's color aware, color space aware, and two, HDR wheel, it's similar to your lock wheel, except that in lock wheel in Resolve, you have only 3 different areas, like the very bright highlight, the shadow, and then the midtones. HDR wheels, it's similar like that with a predetermined area, but it has like 6 of them, and you can even create your own. So for example, in HDR wheel, if I click this arrow over here, I'll see my histogram. So the histogram of my image, by the way. Here, for example, if I want to just bump up the dark area just up a little bit, or maybe that's too much, or maybe reduce the light or the highlight, I can do that just in this particular area. And just by doing that, I'm finished doing my balancing, how do you call it, adjustment. And to my eyes, the clip looks a little bit more magenta, and that's where I can do the white balance adjustment. Of course, there are plenty of ways where you can do that. You can do that in HDR by using the temperature and tint, and you can do that with a lift gamma gain temperature and tint. But the method that I really love to do that is like very broad method, the one that, you know, it's not very narrow and it's very broad, is that by using printer lights, and that is just by moving the offset, how do you call it, increasing the red, green, or blue points in my offset wheel. And I can do that using the lift gamma gain and switch onto the color bars. So the clip looking a little bit more magenta, so I can just reduce red a little bit. And now it looks too blue. Maybe I can warm it up a little bit by introducing yellow. And to introduce yellow, I don't have yellow here, but remember the opposite color of yellow is blue. So simply by reducing blue, I'm increasing yellow. So let's reduce blue to around like 2 points. And maybe leave the red as it is. So this is before and this is after. The way, if you like to measure it, if it like, I need more accuracy on it, you can switch to your qualifier here. And in your, how do you call it? In your viewer, you can right click and show picker RGB value. So for example, if I'm picking up a neutral area, for example, if you have a gray card, and this is where you can just like measure it, that the gray card has to be neutral. Or if you have like white area, it has to be neutral, or black shirt in this case, it has to be neutral. And that's exactly the case because the red channel is at 29, the green channel is at 0.29, and then the blue channel is also at 0.29. So we're good. And the next up, what I would like to do is let me just disable the picker value. So one more tip, guys, which is I forgot to do that. So for example, if you do any adjustment in one node category, you can like apply it directly to the clip that you selected simply by using this command, go to color and ripple node changes to selected clips. So for example, I did that, and you'll see that I have the adjustment, the white balance adjustment in my clip here as well. So that's another way to do that. Another way is like simply like middle mouse button to the clip that you already worked on. But that will be like it takes everything, every adjustment, and then bring it onto your next
Could you
clip.
possibly show like stills and maybe keeping your structure on the still just so they can see that option too? I think it might be beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. We can do that. So this is the before. So before all of this adjustment, if we compare it with the still, you can really see that, let me close the gallery. You can really see that this is the before and this is the after, like pretty significant, right? And now what I need, this is like after finishing the base, bringing the balancing, bringing the balance of the clip. What I can do is that go to another clip and try to match that same adjustment onto that other clip. So for example, here I'll move to the second clip and I just like middle mouse button and I'll press the up and down arrow. So I'll just move like before and after clip. Okay, it looks like in the second clip I need a little bit more contrast. I can do that, add a little bit more contrast, or perhaps the exposure, the highlight is a little bit too bright. Sorry, this. Yeah, and we can just like go to our HDR wheel and then adjust the highlight wheel a little bit. That's also not the absolute way to do that when you are comparing two different clips, because as Tony pointed out, you can wipe the clip, like the second clip to the first clip, simply by right-click the first clip and select wipe timeline clip, right? So you can kind of compare like this one, the highlight is a little bit off or something like that using the wipe. But me personally, I like just jumping from different clip because yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I was going to ask
problem,
you,
man.
You can hop to like clip 28 in your timeline. That's a little bit dark, and maybe you can showcase like diffusion and you can showcase the highlights.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I will showcase the diffusions as well, and then the highlights. But in this clip, um, if you don't mind, let's do that once we finish talking about the relighting
Yep.
of the clip, right?
Yep.
Okay. Because that's like the most fun part, and we cannot miss that. That's about building the look. So oh man, I have 10 more minutes. That's not good, man. Uh,
Ah,
yeah, the Windows things. So what I use this notes for is that I normally, you know, when we are using the ASIS transform, it is bringing our clip into a very neutral point. But then sometimes if you're not shooting with a gray card, or if you're not doing like lighting very detailed in the scenes, sometimes the the how do you call it, the weight of the clips is not spot on, because in this clip, what I want to see is like Sammy. I want to see the subject, and I want to see the subject separate from the background, right? And sometimes those things, if you're not like carefully exposing your exposure on set, um, that could happen. But since it's a very fast moving project, you cannot do that like on set when shooting, right? So in this case, if I want to like make the subject like pop out from the background, I can make the background a little bit darker than the subject. But first, what's very important to me here is that the lighting pattern. Here we are seeing in Sammy's face, we seems to have like a loop lighting patterns, right? So it's not really a Rembrandt lighting, but it's like more loop lighting. Because you cannot see like those triangle here, and it's not even a split lighting or paramount, but here I can see a loop lighting because there's one dark side on the face. So I want to accentuate that, and to do that I can just use like my power window and go to my gradient window. If I press the highlight, you'll see that it is affecting only the visible area. So what I'm going to do is that I will go to my lift gamma gain and reduce the gain on that area. So just like that. The mantra here is that the more shadow, the more drama there is. So I want to add more drama into the clip, and that is by using the um, windows. So you got the point. I think we can also use the windows to separate the bike and Sammy from the background. But if we're doing that, I think we're running out of time. So let's move into the creations of the look. So what I did here, okay, I have to disable the timeline filter because I just chose this 4 different clips. So select all clips. And if we go to timeline, you'll see that we have like the serial node that we created here. The big thing of this project, the big looks of this project coming from the print film emulations. I can use like the Kodak 2383 here, 2383 LUT, or if I want to, I can also use Magic Bullet looks, and then just use Magic Bullet film inside looks to let's do that. So I can, like, for example, press edit looks. Now we are in Magic Bullet looks. Now we need to like define what our input and what our output is, right? Since we set our project to work in ASIS CCT, we can go here in this input and output and go to the color management tab. In the mode, go into ASIS Open Color IO, and in the input I'll select ASIS CCT, and in the output I select same as input. And for the preview, I want to preview it in Rec 709, and just by doing that, it's like I see exactly what I see in Resolve. So for example, if I want to emulate like the print film emulations, I can just use the print film here, perhaps reduce the contrast and tackle the exposures a little bit, perhaps just like that. bring up the saturations, and play around with this vintage modern slider. I can do that like really easy. And as I confirm that, I got like the print film emulations using 2383, or if I don't like it, I can use the 2395 or Fujifilm 3510, or there are plenty of options for you. What's nice about Magic Bullet Film is that it is based on a scan of film that the crew did like a long time ago, and it's there. Use it. Let's cancel it for this one because we already have a lot going on onto that.
And can we emphasize that part right there specifically can be done in Premiere?
Exactly, Tony, because Magic Bullet looks available in multiple host apps. That's really nice. If you're in Premiere Pro and you want to emulate film, like you can emulate film print and film negative using Magic Bullet looks exactly like that. In fact, in my look, there is also film negative emulations happening right in the group pre-click, and I will show that right after this, along with the halations and diffusions. How do you call it? Effects.
Yep.
So first we have like this 2383 film emulations, and the big how do you call it? The big look coming from this SATLAB compound node, and it is something that I stumbled upon quite long time ago, not very long time ago, quite recently actually, and it's really nice. It's like you can increase saturations using LAB color space, and by doing that, let me just show you. If I go to show compound node, you'll see that I have a node that divided into 3 different parallel node, and here in the node on the top one, the color space is set to left CIE, and the channel active is on the channel 1. And the second node is also the same, lab CIE, but the channel active is channel 2. And here it's channel 3. So it means in the lab color space, LAB color space, the one on the top will be the L channel or luminosity, luminance channel. The second node will be like the A channel, and the third node will be the B channel, the LAB. So what's the difference in A and B channel? A and B is responsible for the chrominance of your image, and in A channel, if you put positive value, you'll get magenta, but if you put negative value, you got green. And in the B channel, if you put positive value, you got yellow, but then if you put negative value, you got blue. So using that, it's like really really nice way to add saturations while creating a look. So what I did here exactly is that I'm simply just using curve, and this is what I did. I just bumped up the highlight a little bit, so I got like magenta, and in the shadow area, I like bumped up the curves as well, the curve point here, so I got green. And to showcase that, like it's very very subtle. I don't know if you can see that. It's very subtle. Let me just go to another clip, probably just to how do you call it? Just to describe it. So let's do that here in LAB. So I am in lab color space, LAB, and channel 2. Okay, so for example, if I boost the top end, I got like magenta on the highlights, and if I drag the shadow, if I put it too much, of course I got like this laser green. The moderations is key, right? And in B, if I put the highlight area, if I boost the value, I got yellow, but I just want something like that. And in the shadow, I can get blue, but do it in moderations. So, and then on top of that, when you're finished, you can just like still adjust that in your key, how do you call it, output. So that is like the big look for the project. But if you notice, there's something else going on, because I told you before that there is a film negative emulations going on. So what I did here is that I use Magic Bullet looks. So without the film negative emulations, it looks, wait a second, it looks something like this. But with the film negative, it changed the primary colors. And the film negative that I use is through Magic Bullet looks. So if we go to Magic Bullet looks, we set it into ACCT in and ACCT out. And I just apply the Fuji film, like in the presets, if you, in the film stock, I select like Fuji Eterna, and then boost the vintage modern value, and then reduce the strength to 25% and save it as a preset. And by doing so, I like slightly emulate, I slightly shift the primaries, the color primaries into as if the digital footage that we have here was shot using this film negative. So that's what I did. And the next adjustment here is like the fun part, right? If you are familiar with film, normally when you're shooting with film, you got like this artifact that is called halations. And the halations is like the very, you know, like if you take like a very contrasty part of your image, and between the highlight and then the shadow, you'll see that there's like a bright red, like a highlights going on. And that is like, if I turn it off, you can really see in this area, exactly on Sammy's t-shirt, you'll see that there's like a glow, like red glow is going on there. And that is also simply by using Magic Bullet looks. In Resolve, by the way, there's also a Halations plugin that you can use in Resolve. But since I am mainly creating the looks using Magic Bullet looks, why not using Magic Bullet looks, because it's already there. There is like this Halations that you can use here. And what I did is that I limit my halations only onto like the very bright highlights. So for example, if I do that, you can really see that I limit the halations only on the white part of the image, right? And new in Magic Bullet looks is this tool called Optical Diffusions, and this is like really nice tool, because by using optical diffusions, you can like emulate putting diffusions filter in front of your lens, and this is like a very nice way, especially if you want to like create mood, create atmosphere in your shots. And optical diffusions is not just softening your clip. So for example, if we disable this one, you can see that there are tons of presets. If you're familiar with diffusion filters, like the very famous one, the Black Promise, I think it's Tony personal favorite, right, Tony? The Black Promise one, quarter strength.
Pearlescence.
I use it like here. That's a proof to the pudding. Like there. There you go. And the nice thing is that, you know, you can emulate tons of filters, not just like Black Promise. For example, I really love Glimmer Glass. And where is Glimmer Glass? Here, Tiffin Glimmer Glass, full, right? You kind of like this is like very time consuming, because like you'll be like carried away doing this, because it's like, oh, what is this filter doing? It's like, oh wow, it's softening the clip. And you know, I talked about texture previously, and this is another way where you can introduce texture to your image. By using the diffusion filter, you can like literally soften the image. And what's nice with this one, you can just limit it. It's like, oh, I want limited. I want the effect to be only on the highlights. So something like that. And yeah, that's it. And you can have like a bloom in the highlights only. And there's already a preset to do just that. Like here, subtle bloom, like very subtle. I hardly can see it, but it's there. Like, there you go. So that's like the very big part of the look, is that it is using how do you call it, the diffusion filter in the pre-clip. So before the clip got color corrections, it is to emulate as if the clip was shot that way using diffusion filter. Of course, I mean, it's not the same by using like a diffusion filter like in front of your lens and introducing a diffusion effects on the post stage like in Resolve. It's not really the same, but it is similar. And sometimes it is really nice because when you're using diffusion filter, sometimes the lens, the focal length of your lens matters. And I think different focal lengths require different density of the diffusion filter. Is that right? So, Tony?
Yes, and one other thing I was going to say, well, two things, since we're like at the tail end and we're a few minutes over as usual.
Oh,
The one thing I would say is sometimes, that's very stylized, and to have footage that's baked in with the lens filter is not necessarily what the client desires. So it's not a bad idea to add your flavoring afterward, because that's a particular flavor when you shoot with anything with diffusion that's on the lens itself. It's going to cause for a specific baked-in look that sometimes you might have to undo in post. So it's good to be able to have the flexibility to add it in post versus what's in camera.
exactly. So you can just shoot clean and then add diffusions effect after that, and that's really nice. And using the grouping like this, you can add those effects that affects light as if it is coming from the camera that way. So if you want to use
post, if I could trick you in post versus, and then not only you give your client what they want, which is typically something a little bit less dynamic, and then the creative can be added later on, but there's a way to shoot for that. So that's all I want to say about that. But I also do want to tap you on the shoulder and let you know that.
Time. We're out of time.
Yes.
We're out of time. That's not cool.
I do have a quick question though.
Oh
Can
yeah,
I
go
ask
on,
another?
chat.
Yeah, there's a great question in the from somebody who's watching. Yatindra asks, like, how do you recommend someone develop an eye for good color grading? Which I think is like a really interesting conversation. Like, where would someone start? What I suggested was start by learning scopes, because like learning like what's out of gamut and what's like over bright and what's crushing your shadows, or even just looking at your waveform monitor, just like seeing a color cast and learning to be able to like see where neutral colors are not neutral colors. It seems like just training your eye that way is like a good place to start. But I don't know, what do you guys think?
There's a good cheat sheet for that. If you use Colorista, use the guided color correction effect.
Oh yeah.
That teaches you how to read a scope. So a lot of people, if you ask somebody in a room full of other tech people, other creative people how to read a scope, they might be worried about it. So if you want to cheat, apply Colorista 5 or Colorista 4 even, and then go to the guided color correction in Adobe Premiere or in Resolve, and it'll take you down the line. It'll show you exactly where things should be, and it gives you some text in there. So that's your cheat sheet if you don't know how to read.
And
brilliant.
Big things about Colorista guided corrections is that it teach me something. Contrast is king and color is queen. So do your contrast first, and then after that, tackle your saturations. And what's nice is that it also shows you that if you, for example, want to like determine the correct amount of contrast of your clip, which is I didn't show today, is that you can actually like turn your saturations off like this because your eye is like our eyes, human eyes, is like very subjective. It change. It has chromatic adaptations. So that's another vocabulary that you can search in the internet. Chromatic adaptations. I'm trying to look
I'll add
somewhere.
one more thing about that, since you mentioned that. There is an order of operations, and in that guided color, it actually takes you down the proper order.
Yeah.
So you end up with, you start at one point, you end saturating your towards the end of it. So
Exactly.
take a look at guided color correction if you want to cheat.
Go on Colorista, start Colorista, and use guided color corrections. So
Yes.
turn the saturations down, and then pump up the contrast, and you can see that, oh yeah, I like it, that one. And then you can start like to reduce, like reset the saturations, and from here on, then you can like, okay, maybe I need to ramp up my saturations, or I don't need to, because as you increase contrast, the saturations increase as well. And another thing that you can do is that just simply watch a lot of movies, and website like Shotdex is like really important. Shout out to Shotdex, by the way. It's my favorite website in the world. Is that it collects a lot of a film clip. Oh, I haven't logged in, so using Shotdeck, you can like browse many like different shots from film, and you can like try to get to know what's going on in that film, and then you can use that as your reference images to try to bring your image closer or further away from that, and get inspired. So, for example, if you're into paintings, it's a cue, by the way. If you're into paintings, you can take paintings and then try to dissect it and try to get inspired from it. Speaking of paintings, next Max on Color sessions on September 1st, we'll be joined by our dear friend Dr. Sasi, where we're gonna talk about getting inspired from paintings and bringing it closer to cinematography. How do you get inspired from paintings? So I think you are asking a great question there, and I hope to see you at Max on Color at September 1st, right? So with that being said, and please apology for running over. Go to your handout sections, and you can download the PDF. You can open the PDF, and there's a important links for you to access the free T-shirt. And the code for today is the creative workflow, and you can get any of this T-shirt, one of this T-shirt, and oh, sorry, Ask the Trainer T-shirts, by the way. So anything with Ask the Trainer, that would be the T-shirt. In fact, let me just click the shop link, and the code for today is creative workflows. So you can get any of these T-shirts, the one that you see here, right? And check out maxon.net/events, and you'll see that next Monday we'll have our VFX friend joining us. So if you want to know more about VFX, and that's like a must-have for you, I guess. And as I already spoil it, we'll talk about getting inspired from paintings in next Maxon Color sessions, and then next month, the Demystifying post-productions will be talking about the digital cinematography. You can join Chad and Ellie in the sessions, and they will break down the good practice of digital cinematography. Perhaps if you want to know more about lighting ratio, or camera sensor, or anything about exposures, or anything cinematography related, then I think that's the best chance for you to get to know that, right? So by the way, this session is also recorded, and if you want to watch the recording of the sessions, go to YouTube and search for Maxon Training Team, and recordings the recording of these sessions will be uploaded into YouTube Maxon Training Team channel as well. So with that being said, I would like to thank you, Tony, for shooting such an amazing project. And thank you for collaborating with us. And thank you, Chad, for always asking the very nice questions and representing the audience. I think you did great to inspire people to learn more about color grading today.
Cool.
Right.
Thanks,
So
buddy. Good job.
Yeah. With that being said, thank you so much. And I hope to see you all next week on Demystifying Post Productions again. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good one.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.